Hi everyone and welcome to This Is Why We Fight. I'm Jo.
And I'm Jordan.
Hello. For this evening's we want to talk about ingratitude and...
What Joanne is trying to say, we've got a cracker. We've got everybody's favourite pinata, the NHS.
Let's have a look, shall we? Yes. So, those nurses... What to say about those nurses? They go into strike. Apparently they got a pay rise. They just don't want it.
Poor diddums. Poor little things.
Okay, let's see what this is all about. All this kerfuffle, shall we? So they're basically striking. They've got a 1% pay rise. It's not enough. We're going to talk about why even that's undeserved. Labour, this is one of the few times we mention Labour. They always pipe up when you expect them to. So the NHS heroes deserve more money, but the government insisted 1% was what's affordable at a difficult time for the public finances. Do these people really not understand financially where we are at the moment? This is amazing.
I think they genuinely believe money grows on trees and we can just continuously borrow more and more and more of it. And nothing bad is ever going to happen by doing that.
It's just the arrogance of this. Like, there are people who have nothing and they're complaining about a pay rise that doesn't quite, fit what they want it to be. They should be grateful they're getting one.
You can see the arrogance in this. You didn't highlight it, but the Royal College of Nursing called this pitiful, arguing that its members should get 12.5% instead. Who on earth has ever had a 12.5% pay rise? What justification can you possibly come up with for that? The NHS is bankrupt. We're all having to be locked inside our homes in order to save the NHS. How are they possibly justifying an extra 12.5% spending? Or a pay rise, rather.
Especially when you consider the next sentence, which talks about 1.3 million other public sector staff, including teachers, the armed forces, firefighters and police officers. Oh, we won't talk about police officers. I'm sure that's another stream in itself. But firefighters do actually risk their life every day. And they've run a pay freeze.
I'm pretty certain the armed forces do it all, to be fair.
Well, I picked out firefighters because because this is more relevant, I think, to the equivalence that to call the nurses heroes.
That's fair.
They're being paid to do a job, and how much of that job have they really done over the last year? They spent more time protesting and marching that I've seen than actually nursing, considering hospitals have been empty. What have they done to earn even that 1%? The Royal College of Nursing is right, it is pitiful. What have they done to deserve it? They've been mocking people's deaths all year, and people have been clapping for them. It's absolutely ridiculous.
That's something that's brought up later on in this article. Anyway, is it this one or the other one where they go on about the clapping? I think it's this one. It's the little section that I'm on about.
Yes.
But anyway, carry on.
Okay, so just to read on a little bit more, there is a little comparison chart here. Well, it's not much of a chart. In fact, it's not much of anything. But apparently the starting salary for most newly qualified nurses is £24,907 per year. For some people, that's a massive amount of money. There are lots of people managing on much, much less who work just as hard or harder. I
wouldn't mind being on that.
I feel like this strike is akin to essentially fining people when they have nothing. Striking for more pay in the middle of a pandemic, it's kind of heartless, isn't it?
I would argue it is.
I mean, surely if they're heroes, they just want to help people. It seems pretty selfish to me. Anyway, let's read on. But the Royal College of Nursing General Secretary Dame Donna Kinnair warned it would mean just £3.50 more per week in take-home pay for an experienced nurse. Just. There are people who don't have £3.50 a week left in their pocket after they've spent what they have to spend with the money they have coming in. This is pitiful and bitterly disappointing, she said. The government is dangerously out of touch with nursing staff, NHS workers and the public. The public. Let's talk about the public. What do we think the public will think of this? What do you think, Jordan?
I think the public, by and large, will just see the headline and think, oh, 1%, they'll have our initial outrage. But if they were to ever read into it a little bit more and see that they're actually pushing for 12% or 12.5%.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
I don't even know what they'd do. I think they'd just throw their hands up and give up on the NHS in general. Because when you look at how the NHS has been used to batter us into staying indoors, because really, out of everything, the thing that is fueling the lockdowns is protecting the NHS.
Protecting
so
it
now
from
we're
what?
protecting it, but then the people who work in it, or at least a section of the people who work for it, are demanding yet more pay. I mean, it's just clown world. It really is.
Don't get me wrong. If I hadn't seen video after video of empty hospitals and, you know, all the other stuff that goes with it, but in comparison, alongside pictures of nurses crying because they've had such a hard shift, which is rather remarkable. How many people have died this year who haven't had access to a hospital or a GP or a nurse? And yet these nurses have time to protest. And they have time to guilt and shame people into clapping for them and protecting them. This is really quite remarkable. £3.50 a week. It's still a pay increase. You know, most of the country's out of work. People have lost everything. Not just their jobs, their businesses. Their life's work. People are using food banks because they can't feed their children. This is just extraordinary. If anyone's out of touch with the public, I would suggest it's the NHS. Honestly. Especially when it goes on to say the Governing Council for the Royal Council of Nursing voted on Friday to set up a £35 million industrial action fund to support members who would lose income during a strike. Well, where's that 35 million coming from? Well, we know where it's coming
over
from.
the years.
It's amazing.
They are, as what could be described by some people, high off their own farts. They are. They're living in a different reality. They think the average member of the public is so in support of them that they'd be outraged at this. I reckon. I certainly think this is the final Thursday 8 o'clock clapping session.
Yeah.
I was trying to think what to call it for a second.
You're right.
I think this is definitely the last one. I can't see people turning out for this at all.
No, you're dead right. I think they've overstepped the mark. I think they thought they had people on side so they could start doing whatever they needed. And the support would continue unabated. I think this is a step too far, and now they're just taking advantage of people's good natures. And given how they can constantly complain that there aren't enough doctors and nurses, that 35 million probably go quite far. There's your pay rise. Enjoy.
The thing is, I can speak 1 second. It is an above inflation pay rise. As this article says, it is inflation. The latest inflation figure was 0.9%. Thereby, 1% is above that. What more could they possibly want at this moment in time? We are how many billions of dollars or billions of pounds in debt at the moment? I'll actually look that up because I don't know.
I know we've hit the 2 trillion mark, didn't we, at one point? Or am I thinking of the US?
There you go. The UK debt is rising at 5,170 quid a second. It is 2.4 billion at the moment, going on 2.5.
Amazing.
Absolutely insane.
12%.
Trillion. It is such a large number, it's actually hard to read.
It's amazing. 12%. Do these people understand how people feel about them. I'm sure they obviously do not. I wish they did. Anyway, let's carry on. The public sector Unison, we're all in it together, right? Has called for a mass slow hand clap. Is that a golf clap? At 8 o'clock, 2000 hours, 8 p.m. next Thursday, over what General Secretary Christine McAnea described as a miserly offer. Miserly. It's easy to call something miserly when you don't have to foot the bill, isn't it, Christine?
What other services has been cut in order to pay for their 1% pay rise? Because you know something has been. Like, is that money that wasn't going towards a small business relief fund, which the government shut down? Or is that money that was going towards something else?
Well, it's definitely come from somewhere else because, you know, the government doesn't have any money, does it? So everything has an allocated space. And if you have to create extra money for one space, you have to remove it from another.
Indeed. The greatest irony of all is if it wasn't for their demanding that the NHS exists, if it was a completely private market, they'd probably be making more money than they are. What they've got at the moment is pretty bad working conditions, I think it's fair to say. The shift work is not easy, and it will never be easy.
Not for the last year, but go on.
Well, fair enough, but, you know, just in general, shift work is not an easy thing. They have got all the benefits and protection, though, of a public job. One of the trade-offs when you take on a public job is your pay may not be the greatest, but your pension's going to be bloody good. And it's also incredible job stability. You will not get fired from a job in the NHS unless you actually mess up badly.
Yeah, unless there's negligence or, you know.
Unless you really, really mess up, you're not losing your job in the NHS. It's not like if you're in the private sector where you can lose your job simply because people no longer like you.
Yeah. It's also, again, this smacks of such arrogance. To have job security in this day and age, this year, in this country, is an amazing privilege. The fact that these people can strike for pay when the rest of the country is up to its eyes in debt or just completely living on the breadline shows sheer arrogance and a complete misunderstanding of the mood of the country. This sounds like a selfish, childish demand to me.
It is.
Fair pay for a fair day's wage is understandable. But nobody else is getting a pay rise. Well, some people are, but these are the CEOs and that. Go and complain to them.
Just think of the optics. When the country is absolutely on its knees and you're sitting there complaining, oh, my pay rise was only an extra £3.50. But do you have any self-awareness at all?
Exactly. Why don't you quit your job and give it to someone who'll appreciate it?
You literally had a national campaign where people were going outside and banging pots and pans for you. And people were being guilted into joining this nonsense cult. And now you're complaining, oh, my pay isn't high enough.
Well, let's not forget as well, look at all the other perks they got. No more queuing for the NHS workers.
I forgot about all of those.
No waiting in line for them. Didn't they get free travel, free meals offered, free coffees from various cafes and restaurants? You know what? While they were allowed to remain open.
Ones, yes.
Yeah. Lidl and Aldi, I think, were offering massive discounts to NHS staff.
I think so.
Don't quote me on that. That could be wrong. I know that big companies were offering them discounts. They were going to the front of the queue. They were getting freebies and discounts, and they got a hell of a lot of perks. So many, in fact, that they had time to do other things, didn't they, while they were on the clock? Well, we were paying them.
There is actually a section on the NHS website, NHS People Offers, and it goes through all the companies that are
supporting them.
Yeah, like all the companies that are offering them NHS discounts. Supermarket offers. Okay, let's go through these. 20% discount for all NHS staff. That is Iceland. 20%. That's enormous.
That's £20 off a £100 shop. That's a lot of money.
It's enormous. If you work for the NHS and you break down travelling between home and work, call us 24/7 on your dedicated NHS number, and an AA patrol will come and save you. Addison Lee, 25% off. That is actually insane. This is a thing all of its own. Turkish Airlines, 40% discount. Not only for
Airlines.
The health worker, not only for the health worker, but everyone accompanying them.
I have to laugh at that. So you can't fly, but here's a discount.
Well, there is an irony to that. Okay, yeah. Well, do you know what? We might go through this another time. That's actually bloody interesting.
But it still goes to show they've more than had their pay rise. They have privilege and perks that is not afforded to literally anyone else who has worked without complaining throughout the last year, throughout all the lockdowns, people who have worked in shops, who just go to work. No one's fought for any perks or pay rises for them. All of the people that kept the supply chain going, the farmers, the bakers, all of them. It's all about the NHS. And when you consider what they were doing during their shifts that they shouldn't have been doing, we were paying for that time as well. It really is quite extraordinary that they feel that they have just the sheer nerve to behave like this. That you're getting a pay rise at all is more than you deserve. The mass slow hand clap is just another insult. This is insulting, says some random woman who may or may not be a nurse. We don't know.
No, we do know. She's an intensive care nurse.
Well, maybe.
She was completely shocked when she heard about the 1% pay rise. I wasn't all of. They're nowhere near as shocked as I was when I heard that people were pushing for 12.5%, let me tell you. Jo almost hit the ceiling when she read that. She went beyond Peggy Mishra. I'm not sure what the next level is. Anger like I've never seen out of Jo.
Hey, come on. I didn't tell her to get out of my pub. I was very close, though.
You said so much worse.
Emily, who it's claimed is an intensive care nurse at a London hospital, not the London hospital, says the first thing that came into my mind was that this is insulting. I agree, Emily. It's insulting to every taxpayer in the country. It shows a complete disregard for the work NHS workers have done this year. Should we talk about some of that work, Jordan?
I don't know. I don't know of any of their TikTok videos. I can't even meme them for you. I'm sorry.
NHS workers have made TikTok videos while you are taking taxpayer money as wages, and you have the sheer cheek to call a 1% pay rise that you don't even deserve an insult. You're insulting us. You insult us every day when you make those stupid videos while people are actually dying. Cretins. I'm so incensed by this. This whole year has taken a lot of personal sacrifice for all of us. We've put ourselves at risk. What of a sprained ankle? What of bad choreography? What is the risk? For goodness sake.
We've taken a lot of personal risk making those TikTok videos. We could have, beyond falling over, just imagine the humiliation if they didn't trend.
Well, yes, reputations were at stake, weren't they?
Exactly, massive reputation. You've got to beat the other hospitals. You've got to have the most TikToked video going.
Yeah, but you know what? The highlight for me this year, I think, was the one where they were all paddling along on top of a coffin. Or on top of a gurney.
Was that? No, to be fair, that one was actually pretty good. My personal highlight was where they were carrying that dead COVID-19 corpse.
They're just making a mockery of the whole thing. People actually have died because they have been restricted access to health services, and you're making stupid videos, and now you demand a pay rise.
Let alone how many people are going to die because they didn't get treatment.
Well, yes. Well, that's a whole other aspect of this. The people that either couldn't get to hospital, couldn't get to see a doctor, or were too afraid to because of all the beans, means, Heinz nonsense. It does go on to say, but Emma, a nurse who works in Nottingham, said that even though 1% isn't much, it's still a pay rise. Someone's grateful, at least. Well done, Emma.
Fair play, Emma.
I mean, Emma... yeah, well done, Emma. You still don't deserve it, but well done. Health Minister and former nurse Nadine Dorries said she was pleasantly surprised that any rise had been proposed. Not my words, but yes. With the government set to borrow hundreds of billions of pounds this year to support people and businesses through the pandemic. Yes, pleasantly surprised. You lucky people, you got a pay rise. Most people don't have a job. She told BBC Radio 4's Today programme that nurses do their job because they love their job, adding that we totally appreciate their efforts over the past year. Those TikTok videos were amusing, I'll give you that. Do their job because they love their job.
They love their job so long as they get more than a 1% pay rise.
Yeah.
If they don't get more than a 1% pay rise, those toys are going out of the pram and they're going on strike.
And just to bring up that point, who goes on strike during a pandemic? That's the most callous behaviour, surely, that anyone could display.
Yeah. People are suffering. Objectively. You look anywhere in the country, people are suffering. Look in most places in the world, people are suffering. And you're getting agitated because you've only got a 1% pay rise, which is also above inflation.
People are dying, committing suicide. Some people haven't seen their family for at least since the first lockdown. Some people have never hugged their grandchildren or their children or their grandparents. And you're complaining about a pay rise. Goodness sake, how selfish.
There are children alive who have now we're a year in, there are children alive who have no memory of
life before,
seeing people's faces rather.
Yep, life before masks. There are children absolutely that don't understand that we used to walk around without masks. The amount of mental and emotional child abuse that's gone on because of the lockdowns and various other outcomes is ridiculous. But God forbid these nurses don't get the pay rise they want. Labour said the government's promise to reward NHS workers for their efforts during the pandemic now lie in tatters. I don't know. I think the reward is equal to the effort they put in. I mean, I don't suppose those TikTok videos are worth a 1% pay rise, actually. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think maybe a couple more percent would have done them just good.
Boris Johnson is...
I can't understand how they've somehow twisted this around to somehow being a real pay cut. The manipulation that's gone on there is fascinating.
Well, yes, you're quite right. Labour, the Shadow Health Secretary, Jonathan Ashworth, said Boris Johnson is cutting nurses' pay, called the 1% pay rise in a real terms pay cut. A pay rise is a pay cut.
It's fascinating how they've been able to do that. I would love to see his logic. I haven't been able to find anything that expands upon it. That's the only quote I've been able to find so far. As of this recording, that is the only thing they've said on it.
If a pay rise is a pay cut, how does it equate to, I don't know, a job cut? They still have jobs, as we said, job security. How could a pay rise be a pay cut? This is expectation. This is them thinking things were going to carry on, as they probably did before. With the taxpayer giving them more and more money, they've come to expect it now and they've stopped appreciating it. Anyway, that's pretty much all of that, I think. So
that is indeed all of that article. Now we've got the fun one.
Yes. So this is almost exactly the same article, but it does mention a few different pieces in here. The slow hand clap, or the golf clap as I'm going to call it now, is obviously the headline here.
The golf clap will end as of this Thursday. I cannot see it surviving this. I cannot see it making a comeback after it.
I wish we had the ability to collect data on how many people took part.
I do know. I think this is going to be the absolute the nail in this coffin. I thought it already died twice. Somehow it just keeps coming back.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Like Sean Bean.
Unison is urging people to stand on doorsteps and balconies on Thursday the 11th of March at 8 p.m. to show how they feel about the pay offer. I think a lot of people are going to show how they feel, but I don't think it will be clapping.
I do find it ironic that at no stage during that statement did they mention doing it safely and social distance.
Stay in your bubble.
Stay in your bubble, just go outside and clap. Just don't cheer, don't shout, whatever you do.
This is an amazing picture. There's so much to break down here. We risk our lives to save yours. Again, you're risking a sprained ankle at worst.
We shut our entire economy down to make your jobs easier. That's the reply to that. We shut the entire economy down just so the NHS didn't get overrun, which basically means so you didn't get overworked.
Quick question. I'm not sure this is England. That street sign suggests that it is. The words NHS suggest that it is. Boris, give me your money, punk. I'm so... What? Who wrote that? It's not Boris's money, by the way. It's our money.
This is what I wanted to bring up. This is why I sent you this article, because I saw the headline. Not the headline, so I saw the little picture that went with it. I was like, what? This is not his money. This is government money, which is extracted from us with the threat of violence.
Yes. The threat of incarceration.
Boris, give me the money that you extracted unwillingly from people. Otherwise, I'm not going to work. Like, what? How does this work in this person's mind?
It's amazing.
I find this sort of thing fascinating. I really do find it very, very interesting. I would love to get an understanding of this person's worldview. Do you understand what taxes actually are? Probably not.
They're not voluntary, dear, in case you were wondering.
They should be. I think we should move to a voluntary taxation system.
I agree.
And I'll tell you now, if we did that, the NHS would be no more.
I think the NHS should be privatised at this point, can sink or swim. If it goes on the basis of how it handles itself, the service it delivers and the way it's managed, it would sink within 6 months without the taxpayers constantly bailing it out.
Blimey, I'll give it a couple of days, to be honest, the way it burns through its budget. Especially when it comes to the old PPE thing, which we're going to get onto shortly.
Well, now this photo exists before the strike action, so this is not a strike. This is just a protest. Is it safe, I wonder?
Wait. I'm sorry, one second. That woman there in the background with the mask on, I know they've all got them on, but that one there, she's holding somebody else's hand. She's not very social distanced at all.
Well, I was just going to say, is it safe for these women and men, don't see any men actually, to be walking around the streets in a large crowd, where's social distancing there, wearing their uniforms that they're going to go into hospital with and potentially infect people with? I would say that's a sackable offence during a pandemic, wouldn't you?
The optics aren't great, let's put it that way.
Heroes get 0. Heroes only deserve 0. Honestly, because these heroes are fakes. Look at them. They're just mingling with the general public in their uniforms.
I can't believe that woman is holding somebody else's hand. I'm sure she is. If she isn't, she's really close to it.
She looks like she's dancing, to be honest.
She's going to dance.
She's one of the TikTokers, right? She's just practicing her steps for the next video. Amazing. Anyway, let's have a look at this. Anger about health workers' pay has been bubbling since the start of the pandemic. Anger. See the anger? No one looks angry, actually.
They look smug.
They do.
Anyway, carrying on.
Yes. Why you can trust Sky News. Sorry, had to mention that. Right, so, just to remind you again, Dame Donna Kinnair condemned Health Minister Nadine Dorries' claim that 1% was the most the government could afford, calling it pitiful and bitterly disappointing. It's really important that we mention this because I'm just going to go down. I'm going to have to go back up. I probably shouldn't have started there. Here.
Well, I think everything else above was just...
filler.
Not filler, but we've already covered that in the previous one, have we not?
Yes. Now, first, they're arguing about this. Now, they've been campaigning for 12%, as Jordan said. You said 12.5. It's actually 12, according to this.
On the BBC, it said 12.5.
Ah, right. But on Friday, Miss Dorries, a former nurse, told Sky News that the government's recommendation for 1% was appropriate. She said we did not want nurses to go unrecognised or doctors. And no other public sector employee is receiving a pay rise. There has been a pay freeze. That is, of course, for those who still have jobs. But the 1% offer is the most we think we can afford, which we have put forward to the pay review body. Again, we can afford. They can't afford anything. They have no money. All the money they have is that which they take from us by force, or that which they borrow at ridiculous interest that we have to pay back. So I'm getting a bit tired of this narrative.
I would love if every time a politician said we can afford, we then had the ability to renovate our house and then charge them directly.
Yes.
And then just say, we can afford it.
Yeah.
Just leave it there. Just, we can afford this. Thank you for my nice extension. You know, my nice conservatory. Thank you very much for that. We can afford it.
Yes.
I'm very glad we can. And leave it. That will stop them from saying that we can afford anything. We can afford nothing. The public is paying for this unwillingly.
The public who are paying for this and who have paid for this are the same public that have been furloughed or dismissed, by the way.
Indeed. But let's also not forget that the NHS is a major source of inflation. Because the way inflation works, the government wants more money for the budget, they print some of it off, they give it to the NHS straight away. So the NHS, when they say that they've got their budget of whatever it is, let's play with silly money. Let's say it's 110 million, for example. Because of the way that inflation works, they receive that money first before the inflation kicks in. So even though they've got 100 million now, or 110 million, as I said for some reason, even though they've got 110 million, they've got that before inflation brings that value down to, let's say, 100 million. So realistically, even though they've got 110, they've more than likely got 115, 120 in reality.
That's ridiculous.
It is, but that's how it works.
You know, I missed this when we were reading this before. Apparently, Unite has warned it too is considering industrial action. So that's brilliant. So this is more health care workers striking. This will include things like mental health and social care. So fantastic, just brilliant. The whole country's mourning the loss of its freedoms, all of the deaths that have occurred, all of the mental health crisis that has been caused by the lockdowns. More strike action. Wonderful. Just what we need. Amid growing anger at the pay proposals, they branded an insult and hypocrisy in its greatest form. How is it hypocrisy? I'm sorry. Are the taxpayers receiving a pay rise of more than 1%? How is this hypocrisy? Or are they talking about the government who haven't taken a pay cut? Because there is blame to be had there. Of course, the government is also receiving money from the taxpayer. So these people who pay themselves large amounts of money, they're still spending our money without our consent on boosting their own personal finances. Anyway, I wanted to bring this up. Amira Sheikh, an intensive care nurse and Unite representative, said increasing living costs had left people struggling on stagnant wages, and that the government support earlier in the pandemic now felt fake. Government support? What support was that? I mean, they literally protected your jobs at the cost of the rest of the country. Which part of that is fake?
Yeah, that doesn't count.
I fail to understand.
Obviously, Boris didn't go out and clap hard enough.
Is it maybe because Boris benefited from something that happened and now he's like, yeah, but, you know, we don't have the money, so your demands can't be met? Which I never stick up for Boris, but I think it's a reasonable position to take. Honestly.
Of course it is. It's the only reasonable position to take. The tax receipt is down through the floor. Benefits and what have you have gone through the roof. There is no more money in this pot. It is empty. You are now starting to scrape away at the pot itself.
Referring to the Prime Minister's battle with coronavirus, she said, "We have treated people from the lowest socio-economic backgrounds to quite literally the leader of the country. I don't understand how that's relevant."
It isn't. It's just fluff. It's to try and pad the article out. My favourite bit, though, is coming up. I'm so excited about this one.
Okay, so she goes on to say, she adds, and then she goes on to say, it's amazing. This woman has a lot to say, obviously. We are facing an increasingly dangerous workload in the intensive care unit, and a lot of staff being redeployed to ICU without basic intensive care training. I suggest they shouldn't be there then. That's scary, isn't it?
I would suggest that a nurse is a nurse, and they're more than capable of being nurses, regardless.
Well, I can't speak on this. I don't want to mock this because I don't have the knowledge.
I can't either. I trust them enough to have common sense to be able to do the job. Like, they are highly skilled.
And it goes without saying.
They're capable of doing it.
Yeah, and it goes without saying, we're not addressing all NHS workers here. We know some people have worked incredibly hard.
No, it's just the cheek of the unions, to be honest. That's what we're complaining at here, not the individual staff.
Exactly. There are good people and bad people everywhere. This just comes across as very self-involved, selfish and arrogant, generally, as a message. Thanks for the pay rise, but no thanks. It's not enough, so we're going to throw it back in your face.
We want 12%.
Yeah.
We will not accept less than 12%.
It's like a charity refusing a cheque because the amount's not high enough. That's how it feels to me. Anyway.
Read my favourite line.
So Mrs. Sheikh goes on to say, also the lack of PPE and having to reuse PPE or wear expired PPE and risking our lives. Risking our lives. Please remember this phrase, risking our lives with this either dodgy or unseen PPE, because in order to make sure we cover this properly, we looked up exactly what they were referring to when they said PPE. Now, we knew what it stood for, but we wanted an actual breakdown of the specific items they were referring to. I'm going to quickly read out this before we get to it. So,
I still can't believe that.
So this is from nursingtimes.net. Nurses are trained not to use PPE when it's past its expiration date. Expiration date. I know, you're thinking, what the hell? There's an expiration date. I'll explain. As a best practice measure. But given current shortages, the government has extended shelf life following testing. NHS Supply Chain and Public Health England have worked with manufacturers and independent testing houses to formally test certain products. Which products, you ask? I'm getting there. To see if it's possible to extend their life via accelerated age testing. Stop making me laugh. The products that pass these stringent tests are subject to relabelling with a new shelf life as appropriate and can continue to be used. All that are not up to standard will be destroyed. So that's fair, you would say, yeah, that's fair. Except we're talking about PPE. We're not talking about medicine. Or,
we're not talking about bread.
Or
talking
bandages.
We're talking about plastic and cotton. Plastic, the material that is famed for never degrading, never breaking down. Apparently.
Or at least that's what the climate changers tell us, right? Because we're destroying the world with plastic.
Exactly. Apparently when the NHS buys it, they buy plastic that can rot. Keep that in mind.
Yes.
This is what happens when you buy biodegradable plastic.
So for clarification, it's good to know. It's good to know those plastic bottles that they told us to stop using actually just degrade over time. They lied to us. Anyway, for those inquiring minds who are desperate to know how these things can possibly expire, I'm going to just share with you a brief list of what they are actually describing when they talk about nursing or healthcare PPE. Surgical face mask, eye protector, protectional visor, disposable gloves and disposable aprons and gowns. That is what they are talking about. Cotton and plastic.
But Joe, I don't understand.
What don't you understand, Jordan?
Eye protection. How can eye protection, which is made out of plastic or glass, go mouldy? do you know that's really dumb?
It obviously can.
Of all these things, I could understand if they said scalpels had a use-by date. That would actually make sense because the metal will over time degrade unless it is kept under airless conditions. Over time it will degrade. Perfectly reasonable. It will go rusty. Or it starts to have little micro tears in it, whatever. When they're on about like those silly little bloody face visors, how's that got an expiration date? What's the expiration date on a plastic visor? Thousands of years. It goes. This visor will no longer be usable in like 5,200 years. Don't put it on yet.
I mean, every time they put it on, they're risking infecting it, right? So, like, what is the issue? How can it expire?
This is one of those wonderful, wonderful ways that the government gets ripped off. Because a company out there years ago started this off and said, you know what? It goes bad eventually, lads. Don't use it.
It's amazing.
This is how good. This genuinely is the sort of stuff that government pays for. They pay for plastic, which has an expiration date. If you, it's like selling sawdust to a miller, like to a sawmill. That's what selling to the government is like. It must be the easiest job known to mankind. Oh, by the way, if you buy our PPE as opposed to our competitors' PPE, it goes bad a month later. You can't make it up.
It's just ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing now has become such a scam. I mean, we know all about Wee Cranky's husband and the mask scandal. All of these contracts are given to cronies and friends and companies that people have got a stake in, and it's all just a giant scam. But nurses complaining about expired PPE really does take the biscuit. Really does. Because it just can't expire. Either PPE can expire, and the climate change nutters have been lying to us for the last 5 years, or it can't expire or degrade, in which case these people are lying to us. One of them is lying. Well, when I say one of them, I mean, of course, they're all part of the same little group of people. But yeah, both of these statements cannot be true. So there you go. The scam of scams, it continues. So there you go. So while we are very clear to say that we do not hold contempt for all people who work on the NHS, some people are grateful for what they can get and they work hard. The sheer arrogance of some of the statements that we read out, the unions, as Jordan mentioned especially, demanding things that are so totally unreasonable at this time as to be insulting to us. We have to talk about this, and we hope that you will talk about it as well, because this has to stop. This NHS worship has to stop. When people do a job, they do deserve a fair wage for a fair day's work. But when you consider the sheer indulgence that's been going on with NHS staff for the last year, the freebies, the cutting the lines, the discounts, just all of it.
Well, the discounts, which I have a feeling we're going to be covering that article again. The discount one that I sent to you, that was incredible.
But not even content with that. They've also spent their free time, well, if it's free time, if it's not on the clock and we're paying them, trying to shame us because we just aren't doing enough to support them. Next, they'll be coming around doors with buckets asking you to donate directly to their pay. It's quite ridiculous. The whole country is suffering right now. The whole country. And some people have lost people forever. And they're talking about this 1% pay rise being a slap in the face. I would suggest the slap in the face is their response to it. They don't deserve that 1% if that's their attitude. And they shouldn't really be getting a pay rise at all, given the current financial climate.
No, none of them should be getting a pay rise. Absolutely no government staff should be getting a pay rise out of this. The finances simply are not there for it.
It really is disgusting. I mean, all this money is going to dry up. All the government funds that they've earmarked for certain things, all the taxpayers who are still paying taxes, even those on furlough, that didn't stop. Mm-hmm. They're still paying taxes. The businesses that have gone under, it's just ridiculous. But it's okay because I work for the NHS. I wasn't involved in those dodgy TikTok videos. I wasn't mocking your loss, your grief. It's just ridiculous. It has to stop. We have to stop supporting the system that does this to us. It's laughing in our face. It's insulting. And frankly, I'm incensed by this. absolutely incensed by the attitude. Whatever they get from us at this point, with the very little that we have to give, you'd think anyone would be grateful. But apparently not. It's not enough. Give more. There's always more. Just shake people down a bit more. That's what the clapping is about. Your regular Thursday 8 p.m. guilt trip. I do hope people will be out on their balconies, observing, of course, social distancing, showing the NHS what you think about their demand for a 12% pay rise. I really do. I may even join you. How many fingers have I got spare at the moment? Yep. 2 hands, 4 fingers. I know what I'll be doing on Thursday at 8 o'clock. What about you, Jordan?
I'm staying in the warm. I'm not going to waste my time on that.
Oh, I'm not going out.
I'm not going to go.
I'm not going outside.
I'm not going to go shout at the cows over the road. That's rude.
No, I'm going to give them a V for victory, but I'm a bit silly, so I might do it back to front. I'm just going to stand at my window. I'm not freezing for anyone. That's silly. Even though fresh air apparently is helpful. Only if you're an old person, though. I've never quite worked that one out. Anyway, all joking aside, this is ridiculous. It's shameful behaviour. We hope you're as incensed as we are. We really do have to start disengaging from this system. It cares nothing for us. We're just here to be mocked and laughed at and to be taken advantage of. And it needs to stop. So, anyway, we hope you've enjoyed this podcast. That's another episode of Let's Talk About Done. We will see you for the next one next Friday. And, of course, we are live tomorrow for our famous WRT World Social. That's the live show. We hope to see you there.
Bye for now.
Take care.